the 3 things that I wish somebody would have told me about homesteading. That's what this video is going to be about. So this video, I'm going to be covering a few different topics that you might not really think about when you're first starting a homestead, and it's something I've learned, my wife and I have learned as we've been building our homestead from the ground up for about 7 or 8 months now. So I'm hoping some of the lessons that I've learned I can share with you, and maybe have you start thinking about some of those things if you're watching this video and you've thought about starting a homestead. So right off the bat, this idea for a video was brought on by the YouTube channel Homesteading. So thank you to that to that channel for giving other platforms like myself and my wife who do this an opportunity to kind of share our experiences with the rest of the YouTube world. So with that being said, we just jump right into it. I got my notes here that I took before preparing this video, and so the first thing, it's kind of a practical thing, and there's a few different topics I want to cover in this practical section, and that is waste disposal. So I guess depending on your setup, where you're at, you might not have access to a local dump or landfill, and no good process to have your trash taken out. So we used to burn our trash many years ago, and it didn't really work out that great because things inevitably don't fully burn. Despite having it in a burn barrel, things don't really fully burn, and that leads to critters and birds going into your burn pile and ripping stuff out and spreading it all over your lawn. So the reason I'm bringing waste disposal up is because a lot of homesteading channels or people who are looking to homestead are typically more rural, and they don't have Monday through Friday trash pickup. So one thing we bit the bullet on is actually we rented a dumpster, and I've made some other videos about that, but that has saved me so much time and actually money from me having to load up my trailer with all the trash myself and take it to the landfill and dump. So that has saved a ton of time. So something you don't really think about when you burn trash is the amount of mess it actually makes. I know I've got 3 kids. The oldest is 5 years old, and the youngest is almost a year old. So when you're burning diapers, maybe you've had experience with this, diapers don't fully burn, and it just leaves a big mess everywhere. The burn barrels end up rusting out and making a big mess. So if you can afford it, definitely would recommend not burning and getting a dumpster. And yeah, so that's what I want to say about that. Especially when you're building a homestead from the ground up like we have, you go through a lot of trash, a lot of building material, and it causes a lot of waste. So got my dog Winter right there. Hey Winter. Hey girl. Great Pyrenees. So the next thing I want to talk about is water. We had to obviously your animals need to eat, and one of the things that you don't really consider when you're looking for a property is the fact that your animals need to drink water. And if you don't have any water hookups, that can severely impede your ability to effectively get your animals water. So for example, we had a water company come, it's a well company, come and install 3 hydrants. So they trenched about 150 feet of water, or here I'll show you, about 150 feet of hydrants here, and this has allowed us to strategically place water buckets for the animals. So we got just 3 Jersey cows. Actually, that's a kind of a hybrid right there. Tilly just gave birth. But anyway, the hydrants, very important, because now we can just run a hose right there, versus having water access only at the house and trying to run it in any of the fields. So But with that, just bear in mind, it is not cheap to run hydrants, and to run about 150 feet of hydrants with 3 different heads, 3 new heads, it was about $7,000. So not cheap, but once it's there, and you don't really have to worry about it anymore. And yeah, just something to consider that you don't really think about. So if you're looking for a property that you want to turn into a homestead, ideally try to find one that's got hydrants strategically placed wherever you want animals. And yeah, the next thing is electric. So same thing with water, kind of. If you live in a cold temperature, you can't have your water freezing. So what we had to do is we hired the electric company to come out and trench about 200 feet of line underground to this right here. We also had this building built, and that kind of was what that was related to. But something else I also had the electric company do is, well, actually this was an electrician. They came in and installed an exterior outlet that I can run the water heaters to, and that'll allow the cow water from freezing, and it also powers my office right there. That's something you need to consider too, is power. You need power in a lot of your buildings, and you'll be running a lot of extension cords. There are some solar options for different pieces, like our electric fence here, which I guess kind of brings me into my next point. We run a solar, let me see if I can zoom in on it, right there. We run a solar panel, a solar powered electric fence right here, and it can, so these 2 wires are hot. Solar is great because then I don't have to worry about plugging in and drawing amps out of a 20 amp outlet. And yeah, so the solar actually works quite well. But one thing you have to consider is like all this brush here. If it's touching any of the wires, that's going to severely reduce the power that the electric fence holds. So not only does electric fence keep predators out, but it also keeps the cows in. And once they get zapped once, they typically don't try to touch it again. So like I said, it keeps predators out and keeps them in. And fencing is another very important thing to consider when you're starting a homestead. Running fence is not cheap. And you want to make sure you have good fencing, because you don't want your animals breaking out and running off into the neighborhood, or running off into the neighbor's field and eating a bunch of corn or other things that can bloat them and actually kill them, because they typically don't stop themselves if they get into something that tastes good, and it can actually kill them. So you want to keep your animals in a secure area, and you want to keep the predators out. So our fencing that we got, we've only been at this house for less than a year, and the fencing we had is really just being patched up right now, and it's working for what we got. But one thing we're going to be doing next spring is actually replacing all the fencing here, and then fencing in. You can kind of see some of the T-posts that I've got up there already, like right there. Started on fencing in a whole other field and that kind of thing. So that'll be another project for come springtime. But that's something to consider. Fencing is not cheap, and it's another vital thing for having a homestead. So let me check my notes here. Food. You want to have an ability to keep your food dry. So I built this structure. It's just basically treated 4x4s, 2x4s, and 2x6s. And I'll just zoom in a little bit there so you can kind of see. But essentially what this does is just a roof with that keeps the food dry. This looks kind of janky right now because the calf likes to come in here and sleep, and I'd prefer she didn't do that, but especially because I built that building right there, and they still choose to sleep here. But that's a whole other topic. You want to have the ability to keep your food dry, because you don't want your food getting wet and moldy and having your animals eat that and get sick. So that can be built. I think I built that for I don't know, maybe $500. The tin on the top, I just searched Facebook Marketplace for corrugated metal, and you get people, old farmers tearing down buildings all the time, selling that stuff for like $1 a foot, which is much cheaper than getting it at Menards or Lowe's or something. So last thing for practical is the amount of time that it takes to set everything up. It's really good if you can buy a property that has buildings already established, and infrastructure already in place. But if you don't have that stuff, like we didn't have that stuff, we just had the house pretty much and the fencing, then it costs a lot of money and time to get it all set up. But once you have it, then you're set, which is nice. Yeah, it's just a lot of time, but it's worth it. All right, let's see. The next thing I got here is called Wild Card, and the learning curve is brutal. So with that, as you all know, no matter how much research you do on YouTube, when you actually, or elsewhere, when you actually go to do the hands-on work, it's much different than what you see on YouTube. So, for example, you watch YouTube and you watch people milking their cows and, working with their animals, and it's maybe a couple minutes or clips of that interaction. But what they don't show you is all the work that goes into actually caring for the animals. So it's a lot of work. And that shouldn't stray people away. It's just you need to have a realistic expectation of what it's actually going to entail. It's not all flowers and roses, getting everything all set up and working. And the learning curve is brutal. You'll fail a lot, and that's okay. You'll learn too. And it's just part of the experience. One example of that here. Hey, Duke. This is our cat, Duke. He actually came from Chicago. He was a street cat in Chicago. One example of the learning curve is this building was not here before. This building, the Amish had actually built for us in 2.5 days, which is crazy, but they just built the shell and put all the metal on and whatnot. But it was just an empty building. And then we had an electrician come and set up all the electric, and concrete guy come and put in all the concrete, which some of that stuff you might be able to do by yourself, but we were kind of on a timeline a little bit and paid people to do that. But anyway, done is, and how it's related to the learning curve is brutal, is none of this framing was here. None of the stanchion or anything else. The heating, the mini split wasn't here. I've never framed before in my life, and I watched some YouTube videos on how to frame, and I was just looking at photos on, what a frame looks like, and this is going to be a load-bearing platform, and it's going to be a loft basically. All of this I've done on my own, and it's been very rewarding. Yes, I could have paid somebody to do it, but that costs a lot of money for labor, and it's really fun just doing some of this yourself and learning. And yes, it's been brutal. I've spent a lot of time in here. He's clawing at me. But it's been worth it. It's been very fun. I've been learning a ton about this stuff, and you shouldn't be afraid to start a new project because it looks intimidating. So this is one example personally of it all. So this, side note, this space here is where we're gonna have customers come in and buy milk, buy meat, which is in there. We'll be getting honeybees in a couple months. They're already ordered, and come May time we'll have honeybees. So we'll be setting honey in here, and other setting stuff. So I wanted to build this and kind of make it our own. We're gonna have a dishwasher here. We're gonna have a sink. I've done all the plumbing myself. Again, never plumbed anything before in my life, and it's just, things. That's just an example of how the learning curve can be pretty crazy. But like I said, it's worth it. You shouldn't shy away from it if it's something that you want and you need. I personally enjoy doing this stuff, and like I said, it's rewarding. Another thing, there's so many projects we got to do. All that lumber is cedar lumber that we'll be using to build a raised garden bed, or raised garden beds. We actually had that at our old property that I built, and never done anything like that before. And hey, Duke, and we'll be getting our own food, or growing our own food. And sorry, I'm distracted by the cat. Duke, you coming? Guess not. All right. Forgot what I was saying. But raised garden beds, yeah. It's just a project. And if you're building your homestead from the ground up like we are, so many projects that you'll have. And don't be afraid. Just watch YouTube videos on how you do it. And just go at it. You're not going to break anything. Be smart about it and that kind of thing. But it's totally worth it. Sorry, there's some trash around here. That goes along with the projects, is there's always stuff going on, and I've only got so much time in the day. Also trying to do YouTube videos, and that's beside the point. I got to clean up. That's the bottom line. But the last thing I want to talk about, and the final thing I want to talk about, is something, I guess, like sad. I guess you could consider it sad, that you don't really talk about, that people don't really think about when they're starting a homestead, is your animals can die or get killed. And that's happened to us actually at a previous property. We had some chickens, and this was like 7 years ago. I was on my way to work one morning, and I looked out to say hi to the chickens as I was walking my vehicle, and the chickens were all dead. It was a bloodbath, honestly. And come to find out through the cameras that we had, that a family of raccoons broke into our chicken coop and just slaughtered all the chickens. And the odd thing was the raccoons didn't even eat the chickens. They just slaughtered them and left their bodies everywhere. So, I thought, like, if they would have at least eaten them, circle of life kind of thing, and they could have been fed. But I was not happy about that. We actually went on a raccoon hunting spree for the next 2 weeks and killed a lot of raccoons. But anyway, you don't really think about that stuff. You have to spend extra time building the proper infrastructure to protect your animals. Winter, that white dog you saw, Winter, maybe she'll come here if she can hear me, is a Great Pyrenees. They are very good protectors of your livestock and other animals. And if you have the ability to get a Great Pyrenees, highly recommend it. They'll fight off coyotes and everything else, and they're very friendly with humans. So another thing that you don't really prepare yourself for is, like, we had to put down one of our Jersey cows that we milk. And you don't really butcher your milk cows. That's what meat cows are for. And so you kind of build an attachment with your dairy cows that you're milking. But this particular dairy cow, Glenda was her name. She started getting very aggressive, and she tore apart a stanchion that we had built. She would always kick when you're going to milk, and she had no good reason. It's not like she had injuries or anything like that. Whenever people came by, she started, doing one of those with her hooves, and she would try headbutting people, and it just wasn't great. So because we've got at that time we had 2 small children, she actually went to go headbutt one of our kids. And you just can't have that. You got to protect your kids and other people who might be interacting with your animals. So we made the decision to put her down and or butcher her, essentially. So that's not anything you really think about when you're getting a homestead. But that's just the reality. And honestly, once you put a little salt and butter on the meat, you kind of forget your woes. So So yeah, those are kind of the topics I wanted to discuss. Oh, one more thing. Sorry, this is a little bit out of order. For infrastructure is your roads. So let me walk over there real quick. All right, so if you don't have any roads, like in between your house and your buildings, I will tell you, it costs a lot of money in gravel and rock to basically build a road. And gravel's not cheap, and it takes a lot of time with the proper equipment. Like I use a skid steer and a bucket to build the roads. And the thing with gravel roads is it goes in layers. So I used to think that you could just lay gravel on a road and basically be good to go, but that is not the case. I have spent so much time and money trying to get this road good, and I've learned that it's built in layers, and it takes time to do that, to build something that doesn't just turn into a mud pit. Like right here, look at this. I mean, it's just so muddy, and that's not something you really think about. This was all just grass before, and we've made it into something somewhat drivable, and that's something you got to consider, because one, you don't want your animals to slip in here, and yeah, I mean, for obvious reasons, you want a road, you want good roads, and it's not something you really think about. So if you have the opportunity to buy a homestead that has some of this stuff already in place, maybe concrete or existing gravel, don't think that's nothing, because it's a significant, I guess, perk of a property that people don't really consider. So anyway, I hope, wow, this has already been 22 minutes long. I hope that this has been helpful. I would say that if you're considering having a homestead, considering becoming a little more self-sufficient in certain things, one caveat to that is it's very hard to be self-sufficient. You got to have a community of people. That's a whole other topic. Don't shy away from it. All of these challenges and experiences have been amazing, and if you get the opportunity, if you're thinking about starting a homestead, I definitely would not shy away from it. It's a great challenge. It's rewarding, and I mean, I personally like being out of the city and just having my own peace and quiet, take care of your animals, and just kind of build your own little compound. It's very rewarding, very fun, and nothing beats the quiet. So highly recommend starting a homestead if that's something you're interested in. And yes, it's a lot of work, but it's very rewarding. I think I'm starting to sound like a broken record right now, but hopefully you made it to the end. If you did make it to the end, would appreciate a comment, a like, a subscribe. That definitely helps grow the channel. I know I'm fairly new to YouTube, and one reason why I'm doing YouTube is because I can look back 10 years from now on these videos and just appreciate how far I've come, and it'll be good to like relive the experience a little bit. So yeah, that's all. Hopefully you've made it to the end. Leave a comment. Let me know you've watched it to the end. Even if you normally never comment on anybody's videos, I'd appreciate it, and I'll respond to you. Check out my wife's channel. Her channel is Cedarwood TV. And again, thanks to Homesteading for coming out with this idea. Really appreciate I guess you could call it like a mini collab in a sense. And yeah, talk to you guys later.